Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Frequency as a Love Language. I am your host, Rachel Honey, and today we are going to dive into another one of my modalities, the one that got me started and the one that brought me here, FSM, Frequency Specific Microcurrent. And I'm going to take just a couple of seconds and I'm going to actually read from the main website from the lady of FSM, who is where I got my certification and training from. I'm going to give you a couple stories, tell you how it works, how I use it, cool things like that. What is frequency specific microcurrent therapy? FSM was developed by Dr. Carolyn McMakin in 1995 using frequencies passed on from an osteopath in Canada who had a practice that came with a machine made in the 1920s. Dr. McMakin developed protocols for the treatment of myofascial pain in 1996 and presented her clinical data at the American Back Society National Meeting in December of 97. In 98, she published the paper on the treatment of chronic resistant myofascial pain in the head, neck, and face in Topics in Clinical Chiropractic. The frequencies were developed in the early 1900s and were used with funky-looking electronic equipment that fell out of use in the 1940s. Microcurrent was introduced as a battery-operated physical therapy modality, battery-operated, in the 80s in Europe and in the US. Microcurrent devices deliver frequencies and current in millionths of an amp and have been shown in published studies to increase energy production, ATP, in cells by 500%. And we'll get back to that in just a second. Carolyn McMakin is the leading authority and developer of frequency-specific microcurrent. She maintains a part-time clinical practice, participates in research, and teaches seminars on the use of FSM in the United States, Australia, Ireland, and Europe. She has lectured at the National Institutes of Health and at numerous conferences in the US, England, Canada, and Australia on the subjects of fibromyalgia and chronic pain syndromes. So I just want to kind of share just a little bit more of a story about her, and I'm sure that some of you guys that are watching this episode know about football and have at least heard of Terrell Owens. So Terrell Owens sometime back did something big. If I remember correctly, he completely fractured his femur, if I remember correctly, 4 weeks before the Super Bowl. And if you go and if you look up his story, you're going to find Dr. McMakin and her staff that lived in his home amongst doctors and a barometric chamber that he was in for 22 hours of every day. He had massage therapists. He had personal chefs. He had cleaners, house cleaners. These people lived with him for 4 weeks. And between his doctors and Dr. McMakin and FSM, that injury was healed enough to play in the Super Bowl 4 weeks later. This device, in my opinion, is a magical device, and I cannot understand why we don't use it more. I won't go into it. I do understand, but it bothers me. So, microcurrent is a 2-channel frequency. So it has 2 channels that plug into the back here. I've got 2 little leads that plug into the back. And those 2 channels, so channel A is the issue channel. Channel B is the tissue channel. So we can treat many, 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 many issues in all of the tissues. So if you break a bone, it is a torn or broken issue, and a bone is a tissue. So you run the frequency for torn and broken in channel A and bone in channel B. And what it does is As I've said before, and I'll say many times, everything has a frequency. Our liver runs at a specific frequency. Our heart runs at a different frequency. Our skin, bone, all have individual and different frequencies that since the 1900s we have been mapping out. The Terrell Owens, so for myself personally, it helped me with chronic hip pain. In the height of my chronic hip pain, at the height of my 247 pounds, it was a lot of pounds ago, I hurt myself. It was a Friday morning. I woke up, my husband went off to work. I was working from home at the time. And I got up and went into my home office, got everything set up, and then I was like, whoa, like the pain in my hip was just, it was just bad. So I had my boys, this was many years ago, I had my boys help me into the bedroom. Thankfully we had an adjustable bed, so I was able to sit up and work from the bed. Ended up not going out into the living room that night. We stayed in the bedroom and watched TV so that I could stay reclined in the bed, and it took some stuff to help me, to just kind of force me to have to go to sleep. And it was before midnight, and I woke up and I couldn't move. Everything, it hurt to do anything. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't get comfortable. I couldn't do anything. And so, hey, can you help? So we went to the emergency room, and they did x-rays. They couldn't figure anything out. And so they pumped me through all sorts of pain medication, sent me home. All day Saturday, all day Sunday, completely doped up on pain medication because I couldn't move. I called my FSM practitioner, and she got me in Monday morning. I went in on crutches because I could put no weight on my right side. I went in on crutches. I could barely move. She ran FSM. She did a couple of little manual things with her hands, but not much at all. She's the one who diagnosed me and told me that I had dislocated my pelvis. How does one dislocate their pelvis while sleeping? Not real sure, but I did it. And she fixed it. I walked out of there carrying the crutches in my hand. That's why I say this is magic. My hubby fractured his wrist. Orthopedic put him in a cast for 4 months. We had him out in 2 with FSM. Orthopedist was blown away. My best friend, when we were up in New York for Christmas, slipped down her porch steps, and I mean, the bruise on her butt was this big. It was huge. We had her in a bath with FSM. Before we left, this was at the beginning of our trip. We were there for about another week and a half before we left. She was fine. The bruise was already gone. She was fine. So I feel this is magic. I want to go over just a couple kind of before I show you how it worked, just a few of the issues and tissues that can be treated. A good majority of these are usually treated by actual medical professionals. I don't do a lot of this. I can run the protocols. I understand what's needed. If you were in front of me and we could work through things, we always like to say it can't hurt, might help. But so some of the issues that we can treat nervous tension, emotional tension. We can treat paralysis, things like that in different areas of the body, like the medulla and the pituitary glands. We can balance energy centers. There's an emotional component. It can stop bleeding. There's a torn and broken. There is a nerve component. Let's see. We've got scarring that we can remove, inflammation that we can remove. If things start to get lax, we can help tighten them back up, increase range of motion. Just kind of sitting in and looking through different things. So new injuries. There's great protocols for new injuries or surgical protocols. I did just help with my goddaughter. She had to have surgery, and less than a week. She felt great. She was up and moving around less than a week. She took one narcotic, two narcotics, the day of surgery and the day after surgery. No more narcotics after that. So I'm telling you, it's magic. Let's see, inflammation, shingles, allergy reactions, concussive reactions, cystic, hemorrhaging, infections, irritation, hardening stone, calcium deposits, pain, scarring, spasms, all that toxicity, all that kinds of stuff. And then some of the tissues, and it's all down to the adipose fat. We can get to the artery, the bone, the bursa sacs, like around your knee. You've got a bursa that helps to cushion. We can get to the discs. We can do joint capsules, ligaments, muscles, tendons, bones, periosteum, which is the very, very painful covering that goes around the bones. Skin, we can go deep into, there is a frequency for everything: esophagus, stomach, pancreas, liver, anus. Hadn't seen that one before. Bladder, kidney, ovaries, mammary glands, lungs. So pretty much just there's anything. Now, most of these are usually done, by practitioners in an office setting. I like to say that anything from acute pain, chronic pain, physical pain, emotional pain. And I have kind of gotten away from doing a lot of stuff with FSM just because I don't see people in the clinic anymore. I have, however, figured out how to use FSM quantumly and remotely. So just kind of going back again where we talked about ATP and 500%. So what FSM does at its root is that you have an issue. Let's say that we fractured our bone, torn and broken bone. Now, it's not as easy as torn and broken bone because you didn't just break the bone. You fractured the periosteum around the bone. You probably hit some capillaries to make it bleed around the bone. So you would want, so there's all sorts of things that you can normally do with this bone. And you run these different protocols, and these frequencies go into the body. Now, I don't know if you guys have heard of a TENS unit, but the FDA classifies the devices the same. They're not the same, but the classification is the same. So you have to have the same kind of licensure to run them. A TENS unit, you have sticky pads, you put them on, you turn it on, you crank it up, and you can watch your muscles sit there and dance and bounce. I don't recommend TENS units. Very seldomly do I recommend them. So TENS units are thousandths of an amp, and you can feel that. Microcurrents are millionths of an amp, and typically you don't feel it. Now, if you do feel energies, I don't feel it, but like my husband and my best friend can feel it. My best friend can feel it. I'm in Florida. She's in New York. I can sit and run stuff on her, and she can feel it every time it changes. So it's really cool. But what happens is, let's just say that torn and broken into the bone. So what happens is the bone has a specific frequency, and the bone is the same frequency in everybody. Heart frequency is the same frequency in everybody, and we've mapped those. So we run torn and broken into the bone, and what happens is the microcurrent sends the frequency of what a bone is supposed to be. What is that energetic frequency? And it sends it pushes it into the bone, pulses it because it's current, pulses it into the bone, and it goes in and it zaps and it resets, and it says, you're broken, you're up here, but you're supposed to be down here. So come back down here. This is what you need to be doing. This is the correct cellular DNA, not this broken, this. And so it corrects it, and then it amps it up. So it kicks the ATP, which is energy, kicks it up 500%. So that brand new cell is now multiplying 500% than what it was when it was up here and broken. And so then, are you off, baby? Okay, I love you. Have a good day. Did you get that shoe from her? So it goes in and it resets it, and then it amplifies it. So now this 500%, it's like this whole crew of workers is coming in with the right program and fixing that bone. That's why it heals significantly faster. Emotions are a significant component to what I use FSM for, since I do it remotely. And I have figured out how to do it remotely. So normally you plug these cute little guys in, and there's multiple ways. You can plug these into sticky pads, and you can put them exactly where they need to go around the wound if you were in person. I have these nifty little alligator clamps, and I've been using this lately. So this is my heart Tibetan singing bowl. It's metal, highly conductive. So we take our metal teeth, we hook them to the metal bowl, and then usually what I do is we're talking, we're having a session, we're doing something, and I use crystals. I'll have another episode on crystals, but I use crystals. So this one is a beautiful sodalite heart palm stone, and I link my person to the crystal. I put the crystal in the bowl, and then we start running the FSM protocols. Again, so I've run on my friend in New York, I've run shoulder protocols on her. And literally we would sit and talk on video and just chat, and she's like, okay, something just happened. I'm like, yep, it just changed. Now it's running blah, blah into blah, blah. Say hi. Did you want to say hi? So microcurrent, let's see. So I think for the most part, that's my information on microcurrent. The way that I use it remotely, on all of my new clients, I like to run something called the concussion protocol. I also run the shock trauma protocol. And the reason that I do that is because there is probably not a single person in the world today that has not had some type of traumatic event in their life. Some type. Car accident, a nasty slip and fall where you're in an air cast for 6 weeks. That's traumatic on your body. A horrific breakup, a divorce, a death in the family. All of these things cause trauma. And if you can imagine a car crash, and if you can imagine whiplash in your head, and you get a concussion. Okay, take that a little bit further, and everything in your head, when you get that concussion, gets paralyzed. You have all sorts of very significantly important glands and organs in your head and in your neck that when they get paralyzed, they don't just unparalyze themselves. So like if you wonder why you maybe had a car crash when you were young and you have a thyroid issue when you're older, it's because in here your medulla and your pituitary and your pituitary and all of your glands were paralyzed. And while, yes, your body is functioning, it is not functioning at its ideal state. And so you kind of go through life and the medulla is where all of your your major hormone regulating glands are up here. So if this gets frozen and paralyzed, it's not going to regulate anything down here. So guess what? You get thyroid issues, you get heart issues, you get all sorts of issues. So my very, very first thing with my very first energy session is a full 60-minute. It's partly the concussion protocol, which clears out and balances and kicks that ATP up to refresh and get all of this unparalyzed and all of the secretions and the hormones going the way that they need to be going. And then the shock trauma part is, again, nobody's not had shock or trauma. So I just want to reset all of those emotional chords, those emotional pieces. And I do this in my energy session along with balancing the chakras and doing crystals and doing sounds. And then I also have clients that, I do this. Sometimes we're on the phone while we're doing it. Other times we've already done the phone call and now we know what we need to do, and I just run this in the background. I let you know when I start it, I let you know when I finish it, and we just kind of see how things are going and how things feel after that. So she is starting to get a little bit anxious. Again, I apologize for distractions, but that's what we get when we want to start a free channel. It's not until we start making the big bucks that we can have our own sound room that doesn't have a Mexican hairless pup. Go say hi. Did you want to say hi? Sitting on our lap. So thank you for bearing with me. I know this one was a little bit long, but there was a lot of information into this. Again, Dr. Carolyn McMakin. It's been around since the 1900s. If you've ever gone and had a microcurrent facial from an esthetician, same principle. We have just learned a whole lot more uses for it. So if you have any questions, please comment, like, share. I can't wait to start getting into other modalities and then start getting into my course content. I am super excited. So you can find me on Facebook, Rachel Honey. I have a private Facebook group, frequencyasalovelanguage.com. You can also reach me via email at frequencyasalovelanguage@gmail.com. Oh, I'm sorry. It's Frequency as a Love Language is the group. Frequencyasalovelanguage@gmail.com is the email. Rachel Honey, you can find me on Facebook. Please send me messages. I'd love to hear. I would love comments. And until next time.